Mabui said nothing, but left silently. After a while, he returned with a dignified Darui. Raikage looked at him and said, "What's the matter with this mission? Why have you been away for so long? If I didn't know your character and conduct, I would have suspected that you had betrayed the village." Darui quickly waved his hand. "How is this possible? I discovered a very important thing this time." His complexion gradually became serious. Thinking of what he saw and heard in the past few months, he felt deeply shocked in his heart. That boy who is only 6 years old is really too strong. Raikage frowned. He knew Grand Rui's character. If Darui said so, something big must have happened. What's going on? Tell me in detail. Darui's throat slipped subconsciously, and then said solemnly. It all starts with that mission. Master Raikage, our mission has failed. Konoha's imp is more dangerous than I imagined. Rushily carrying out the mission, we are likely to be left there, and it is easy to cause diplomatic disputes at that time. When Raikage heard this, he immediately said with hatred. Then you were arrested by them. 993, isn't there a reason for Lousy to fight with Konoha when you were arrested? What? Darui was dumbfounded. F*K. Can it still work like this? Raikage secretly regretted the passing of the opportunity, stared at Darui hard, and said angrily. So, why are you staying there? Darui has not recovered yet. It wasn't until Raikage said it impatiently for the second time that he suddenly turned around and said hastily. Well, I saw a very special kid in Konoha. His name is Uzumaki Naruto, but he doesn't have the red hair of the Uzumaki clan, which is very strange. But what's even stranger is his strength. Having said that, his complexion became dignified again. Master Raikage, at what age can you run while dragging a mountain? Raikage wondered for a moment. What am I dragging the mountain to run? I've never F*King done that. Wait, what do you mean? He suddenly came back to his senses. According to Darui, could it be said that the kid named Uzumaki Naruto dragged a mountain while running? How is this possible? Darui nodded slowly and said. I saw it with my own eyes at the time, it was a boulder like a hill. And the most incredible thing is his age, he's only 6 years old. Impossible. Raikage stopped drinking, his face full of disbelief. Not only him. The surrounding Jonins who were called by Raikage by the way also had expressions of disbelief. Even if it came from the mouth of the trustworthy Darui, they felt impossible. Darui, are you having a nightmare? That's right, how could such a thing be possible? Even a genius like Master Raikage couldn't be dragging such a big stone for a run at the age of 6. If this is true, this Uzumaki Naruto is probably not a tailed beast in human skin. It's impossible, no matter how you think about it. The Cloud Shinobi Jonins were talking in a hurry, and they can be summed up in one word. Impossible. Darui spoke silently after hearing them finish speaking. I don't want to believe it either, if I didn't see it with my own eyes. But that's not his full strength. The whole audience seemed to have pressed the Shizune button. Everyone stared blankly at Darui. Then the fierce man boiled up. What? Isn't that enough? Is there anything else besides running on the back of the mountain? Why doesn't he go to the sky? Darui, are you dreaming? It can't be real. Darui, it's not shameful to fail a mission, just admit your mistakes honestly. It's too bad to find a reason for the mission failure. You let me down, Darui. Raikage frowned and looked at Darui. Although he really wanted to scold Darui, whether he was bewitched, or find a reason for the failure of the mission, but he knew that with Darui's personality, he should not do so. After a pause for a few seconds, Raikage said. Since you say that, then tell me what he did. Darui nodded. Thinking of the process of keeping an eye on Naruto closely for the past few months. He didn't dare to enter Konoha village rashly. Easy to find by Anbu in Konoha. But every time Naruto went to practice outside the village, or performed tasks, he quietly followed behind. So he knows very well how terrifying Naruto's current strength is. He swallowed, and then spoke slowly. Do you still remember the ninjutsu Rasengan? Raikage nodded immediately. Of course, that's a jutsu created by 4th Hokage. That man on the battlefield relied on this ninjutsu and the Flying Thunder God technique, known as Konoha's Yellow Flash. What? Did that kid learn this ninjutsu? Darui nodded, then shook his head and said. Learned, but more than that. Normal Rasengan size, in one palm, is a close-quarters ninjutsu. But that Uzumaki Naruto actually developed it in just 2 or 3 weeks, and its power is almost as powerful as an S-rank ninjutsu. And the Rasengan's diameter exceeds several meters. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, it would be hard to imagine that it was real. I also wish I was just having a nightmare. But every time I close my eyes and open them, what I see is a mess that was blown out. After his words fell, the office exploded again. How is this possible? A 6-year-old improved in S-class ninjutsu. Would you like to hear what you're saying? That's something a 6-year-old can do? Even if you want to find a reason, find a more reliable one. This kind of lie that can be exposed at once, it's really lucky that you can tell it. Have you ever thought that, with Darui's personality, telling such outrageous lies means that it is not a lie? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. If it's true, then when this kid grows up, I'm afraid he will become a character comparable to First Hokage, or even surpass First Hokage. Everyone talked in a hurry, but they still couldn't believe Darui's words. Darui just followed Raikage's gaze. Raikage frowned. His first reaction was disbelief, but he also knew that Inrui was not the one who would lie to him. That said, there's a good chance this thing is true. Although he didn't believe it in his heart, he was willing to believe in Darui. Because this is the talent he cultivated, and he is also the leader of the younger generation of Cloud Shinobi. Go on. He said slowly. Darui nodded and continued. After that, he has learned several ninjutsu successively. Every kind of ninjutsu has been greatly improved in his hands. Throw more than 20 shurikens and kunai so that they all hit the center of the target. Some bullseyes are even out of view. It can also dodge the siege of 20 people at the same time, without using ninjutsu, only relying on dodging skills. In the end, I cultivated a blasting technique, which is astonishingly powerful and extremely concealable. Unless it is a perception ninja, I am afraid that no one will be able to detect his explosive ninjutsu. Raikage's brows became tighter and tighter as Darui talked about it. He really wanted to believe Darui, but in his opinion, these things were too outrageous. The Jonins also looked at Darui suspiciously. If you say it's some elite Jonin who wield these abilities, we can still believe it. But it's absolutely impossible to concentrate these abilities on one person. Even First Hokage, who is called the god of ninja world, probably didn't have such abilities when he was 6 years old. Bragging still needs to be drafted. If you fail the mission, you will fail. Your mission itself is not particularly important, and Master Raikage will not punish you if you fail. Darui, you tell these lies, you simply don't take our IQ into account. Darui listened silently, and then continued. These are the abilities he has mastered. And what I'm going to talk about next is his recent record. After hearing the record, Lei and the Jonins immediately focused their attention on Big Rui. No matter how much Darui said about abilities, it was just what Darui had seen and heard. Without tangible evidence, it's hard for them to believe. But in matters like record, there must be opposing sides. This also means that it is impossible for Darui to be the only one who knows about this matter. Lying about this kind of thing is not necessarily a good thing. It's like some ninjas bragging about how powerful they are, defeating so and so and so on. If there are no witnesses, he can still brag and gossip in places like taverns. But in the face of real combat, such people often die miserably. And now, Darui is out of Naruto's record. It also means that they only need to investigate to find out whether Darui is lying or not. Darui looked at the crowd, then said. The first time he fought against the outer village was at the border between the Kingdom of Zai and the Kingdom of Wind. He is fighting against Chiyo, the advisor of Sanagakure, the Land of Winds. The result is that Chiyo is unconscious and Uzumaki Naruto wins. The whole office became silent. Everyone looked at Darui in shock. They never expected that Naruto's first opponent would be Chiyo, the long-established puppet master. Darui continued while everyone was still in shock. Naruto's second fight was at Konoha's gate. He found Orochimaru in disguise and defeated Orochimaru with the giant Rasengan I just said. Immediately, the office exploded. How is this possible? That's the immortal Chiyo. And Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, Orochimaru lost to a 6-year-old child. That's not how you joke. How can a 6-year-old do this? I don't believe it. I absolutely don't believe it could actually happen. It's not scientific. What the hell? Has Konoha's kid become so strong now? What to do? If what Darui said is true, then we are Cloud Shinobi Village. Raikage couldn't help but said. Darui, what you say is getting more and more outrageous. Are you riding the horse to tease Lousy? That's Sanagakure consultant Chio old lady. And that cunning lion Majesty Orochimaru, can't help but Raikage I doesn't believe it. It is hard to believe what Darui said. That's Orochimaru and Chio. They are all veteran players who have been famous for a long time. In the end, you are now saying that a child who was only 6 years old defeated these two? This kind of thing, even a normal person can't believe it. Cloud Shinobi Jonin, who was in the room, all looked at Darui suspiciously. If they didn't know Darui's usual behavior, I'm afraid that he has already arrived in Rui and treated him as a deserter who fled the battle. In the face of everyone's doubts, Darui has always insisted on expressing his own views. Because he saw all this with his own eyes, Master Raikage, that Konoha brat must not be left alone. He said sincerely, if that kid continues to grow, I'm afraid our Cloud Shinobi village will no longer be able to fight against the mighty Konoha. We must kill him now, before he completely becomes an existence that cannot be handled. Hearing what Darui said, the others fell silent. To make the usually dull and lazy Darui say this, that kid named Uzumaki Naruto must be extraordinary. It's just that their common sense still told them that what Inrui said was impossible. Raikage I frowned in thought. He didn't believe it either. But he had to consider the possibility that Darui was telling the truth. If it is true, he, as Raikage, naturally cannot let it go. After thinking about it, he thought of a stronger candidate than Darui. Go and call Killer Bee over. With his strength, he will definitely be able to investigate the situation clearly. His strength is second only to mine in the village, and he can escape even if he is in danger. Killer Bee, as his handpicked partner, is also Jinchuriki of 8 Tails. Naturally, strength cannot be underestimated. It is also a very reassuring person for Raikage I. In addition to his usual personality, Killer Bee is perfect as a partner. Let me take a look. Excuse me, I saved a lot. Naruto looked at the involution value accumulated in the system, and couldn't help but buy it. It's time to draw a lottery. With so many involution values, we should be able to extract good things. System. Song Award. Give instructions in your head. The system's roulette immediately spun rapidly. 3 seconds later, the pointer hovers over. Acquire swordsmanship. By combining with ninjutsu, you can show amazing power. Combined with ninjutsu. Naruto squeezed his chin, and a lot of sword skills combined with forbearance quickly appeared in his mind. The dance of the 3 suns and the moon, the sword technique of Mu Yi Bai Ya and so on. But the specifics of how to practice and the direction of cultivation are better left to the Avatar Brigade to handle. He doesn't need to spend too much time on this. Professional things are left to professional people to do. The Nation of Fire, Frontier. In front of a remote and secluded waterfall. The clone army of Naruto is carrying out the training of various skills in an orderly manner. Suddenly, they all paused for a moment, but then they continued their previous actions as if nothing happened. Only the 3 captains came to meet again on the boulder. The reward this time feels a bit ambiguous. Number 2 stroked his chin. In the ninja world, there are not many famous swordsmanship. It's also good for Wood Yi Bai teeth. He looked at the other 2 captains and asked. What do you think? Without waiting for number 1 to answer, Hai immediately said excitedly. Don't care so much about him. Lousy wants to be a sword fairy. No matter what you say, Lousy is meant to be. Number 1 and number 2 were shocked, and they looked at each other. They found themselves a little stuck in the limitations of the ninja world. In fact, they have the special talent of unlimited skills. Theoretically there is no limit. So it seems that number 3's idea is very exaggerated, but it is not impossible to achieve it. Thinking about it this way, the hearts of the 2 of them were also very hot. Sword Fairy. That is the sword fairy who kills 1 person in 10 steps and never stays behind for thousands of miles. Still number 1 is more stable. He coughed lightly and said. Then let's set the ultimate goal as a sword fairy, but it is obviously not possible to achieve that level in a short time. First of all, let's break down the cultivation work that each is responsible for. For example, power and speed. Number 3 said immediately. Of course you have to break the mountain with 1 sword. If you can't cut even mountains, how can you be called a sword fairy? Number 2 added. In terms of speed, let me do it. Not to mention 1,000 cuts in a second, but 100 cuts. When the sword is unsheathed, countless sword lights will appear in front of the enemy's eyes. Just thinking about it makes number 2 a little excited. Number 3 is even worse. Number 1 slowly shook his head, put on the appearance of an outsider, and showed a mysterious smile. Is that enough? Especially you, Number 3, since you have proposed the goal of being a sword fairy, how can you be satisfied with it? Number 2 and Number 3 immediately focused their attention on Number 1. Do you have any idea? Don't be a mother-in-law, tell me quickly. Don't waste your training time. Under the aggressive eyes of Number 2 and Number 3, Number 1 slowly expressed his thoughts. You guys should know tandem paper bombs. Hearing Number 1's words, Number 2's eyes lit up immediately. Number 3 was a little dazed. Isn't that a self-destruct ninjutsu? If you don't handle it well, won't you be killed by the bomb? Before Number 1 could speak, Number 2, who understood what Number 1 meant, said immediately. He's talking about drawing on the uniqueness of tandem paper bombs. That is to let the sword summon the shadow clone. Number 3 said in a daze. Summon shadow clone? Number 2 saw that Number 3 hadn't understood yet, so he said impatiently. It's Wan Jian returning to the sect. Number 3 was startled, and then looked at Number 1 with shocked eyes. Number 1 puts his hands behind his back, facing the two of them, only showing a side face, showing the demeanor of a master. Number 3 said in shock. They're all avatars too, why are you so good? Number 1 said in a low voice. Because I was born earlier than you. The more you have experienced, the more you will naturally know. Number 2 pushed aside the serious Number 1, and said to Number 3 excitedly. Since we can use the distance of tandem paper bombs to create Wanjian Gizong, then we can also use flying ninjutsu to achieve Yujian flight. Number 3's eyes suddenly lit up. Flying sword? Number 2 nodded repeatedly. As a sword immortal, how can I do without Yujian flying? That's the essence. After intense discussions, the three finally determined their respective division of labor and the ultimate goal for the future. Number 3 is in charge of power enhancement. Number 2 is responsible for the speed of the shot. Number 1 is trying to combine ninjutsu and swordsmanship. After clarifying the division of labor, the three announced the result to the clones. Then amidst the cheers, the Avatar Brigade began to practice intensively. Even before the sun rose, Naruto's eyelids lifted. Naruto, who was already used to it, didn't feel tired at all. He quickly got up, washed and dressed, and came to the practice field in the grove outside the village. Afterwards, he closed his eyes and accepted the experience of the Clone Brigade's one-night training. In a minute. Accepting all the experience, Naruto was eager to try. Pity. He didn't have a weapon in his hand, so he might not use one in the future. For example, the Kusanagi sword in Orochimaru's hand. Now I can only experience it with a ninja knife. He came to a big tree and closed his eyes. The breeze rustled, blowing the leaves and making a rustling sound. A leaf fell slowly. The continuously deflected leaves passed Naruto's eyes. Moment. Naruto moved. The figure rushed forward, leaving only the crisp sound of Genin's knife being unsheathed. Swish 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 swish. Crack. Put the sword back into its sheath. Naruto opened his eyes and exhaled slowly. At this time, the trees behind him slowly fell. Is this my limit right now? Naruto turned his head and looked at the 5 big trees that were slowly falling down. This is the current limit, but only today. After today, not anymore. Shadow Clone Brigade, whoever uses it will agree. Naruto looked down at the ninja sword in his hand. The technique, the dance of march is much stronger. However, due to the fact that the ninja sword in his hand was too short, he found that its power had not been fully displayed. After all, his current swordsmanship has not yet reached the level where he can use branches as swords. The power is still limited by the quality of the sword. A good sword can greatly improve a swordsman. I don't know what standard this sword skill has reached in the ninja world. It's really hard to judge without a reference. Let's find someone to try. The first thing Naruto thought of was Hayate Moonlight, the tuberculosis ghost. But after thinking about it, he cancelled it. Moonlight Gale's Dance of the Three Suns uses Shadow Clone for flanking tactics. Essentially a tricky way. It's just bells and whistles, and the real effect in actual combat is not great. It is really better than powerful swordsmanship. Naruto's first thought is Kakashi's father, Sleepy Yibaya Hitaki Sakumo. Pity. Hitaki Sakumo died long before Naruto was born. So the only thing he can choose is Kakashi in Konoha now. Well, we can only find Kakashi. Everyone else can't see enough. The sun climbed slowly and came to the center without knowing it. A certain training ground in Konoha. Two people are swaying the sweat of youth. This is passionate youth. Ha 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 ha. Kakashi, throw in the towel. Might Guy's wild laughter resounded throughout the training ground. By this time his green tights had been soaked with sweat, turning dark green in color. Sweat dripped all over his face. There was even a puddle on the ground. It can be seen how long he has trained and how hard he has worked. Next to Kakashi, who was wearing a dark blue tights, was also sweating profusely. Although the ground is not as exaggerated as Might Guy, there is a pool of sweat accumulated. But also very impressive, and this has been the daily life of the two of them recently. After observing Naruto's fight up close, although Kakashi couldn't read it, he was shocked. In order not to be left too far behind by these juniors, it would appear that he, elite Jonin, is too useless, so he changed his laziness in the past and started to practice hard. When it comes to cultivation, it is natural not to mention his friend Might Guy. Then, every day, the two will meet for high-intensity training. This has almost become a daily routine for the two of them. But today, something is different. The practice of the two had two more spectators. Kakashi and Might Guy are really hard-working. Yurihong, who came to have a look out of curiosity, said in surprise. They are already so strong, and they still train so hard, which is really admirable. Asuma, who looked like a follower beside him, had a bitter expression on his face.
Of course he knew why. It must have something to do with Naruto.
In other words, if anyone in the village seems abnormal, it must have something to do with Naruto. It's really Naruto who can roll too much. An ordinary thing fell into the hands of Naruto, and he immediately took it to a new height. Forced everyone to follow suit. Because if you don't follow the role, you will be left behind by everyone. Everyone is a person who refuses to admit defeat. How can it be possible to accept being left behind inexplicably by others? And he, Asuma, is also one of the many candidates who were involved by Naruto. Up to now, he is still practicing dodge technique hard. It has to be said that the improvement is not small. But several times to challenge Naruto was easily defeated. As a result, he doesn't dare to appear in front of Naruto now. They are also elite Jonin. In order to maintain their own strength, such training is also very necessary. Asuma said casually. He didn't want to mention Naruto in front of Kurenai Yuhi. Once Naruto is mentioned, Kurenai Yuhi only has Naruto in his eyes and mind. He didn't want to waste his good alone time. But obviously, all this is just Asuma's wishful thinking. Kurenai Yuhi didn't care what Asuma said, and still looked at Kakashi and Might Guy with admiration. In order to become an official Jonin as soon as possible, I have to work hard. She thought silently in her heart. Field. Kakashi and Might Guy were doing push-ups like crazy. Might Guy said while doing it. 10,015, Kakashi, you lost. 10,016. I was 0.1 second faster than you when I made 10,000. Kakashi stared straight at the ground. 10,016. Stop talking nonsense. 10,017. I have done more than you now. When Might Guy heard it, he immediately sped up the frequency. Asterisk 10017. How is it possible? 10,018. I will not lose. 10,019. Burn my youth. How could Kakashi admit defeat? 10,018. 10,019, 10,020. When Might Guy heard this, he stopped talking. The two accelerated crazily. Finally, the two collapsed to the ground. This time, yes, you lost. Might Guy was panting with difficulty, but there was a smug smile on his face. Ha, ha, you did one less than me. Ha. Kakashi rolled his eyes and didn't want to talk to Might Guy. He barely has the energy to speak now. As for winning or losing, who cares? Regardless of the outcome of winning or losing, the training effect is real. Collapsing to the ground, Kakashi kept taking deep breaths to adjust his breath. At the same time, I felt my burning body. During this period of time, he really felt that his strength had been improved. I don't know how it compares to Naruto. It should be close, right? After all, I have worked so hard. Kakashi thought to himself. If Might Guy knew that Kakashi was thinking about Naruto when he was training with him, I don't know if I will be sad. Obviously he came first. After a period of rest, the two also recovered a lot of physical strength. Might Guy suddenly jumped up and said, "Come on Kakashi, let's have another round of passionate leapfrog. 1,000 per person." Kakashi sat up, waved his hand and said, "Let's rest first. I'm not like you physical monster. Being able to practice this level is beyond my own imagination." Kakashi complained in his heart, at least he didn't want to move much until after lunch. Might Guy said in a moment of disappointment. "Kakashi, how can you give up? Have you forgotten the outcome between us?" Kakashi stared dead fish eyes. "Isn't that something you decided on your own?" "When did I agree?" "Might Guy, Kakashi is different from you. He is better at ninjutsu, and you are better at taijutsu. You must be better in terms of physical strength." Asuma walked up to speak with a cigarette in his mouth. "But it's not as good as you, and it's a complete monster. First, 5,000 pull-ups, then 1,000 laps around the training ground, then 5,000 sit-ups, and finally 10,000 push-ups. Say nothing else. Just 5,000 pull-ups are not something humans can accomplish. It turned out that both of you monsters were finished. You guys are so curvaceous, it seems that I, who is also a jonin, is a little incompetent." In front of his sweetheart Yurihong, Asuma has always wanted to show his masculinity. But facing the training between Kakashi and Might Guy, he has no idea of joining it at all. It is too curly. Terrifying volume. Yurihong stepped forward and said in admiration. The two seniors really deserve to be elite jonin. Their strength is already so outstanding, and now they can still work so hard. Might Guy strikes his signature pose right away. Thumbs out, revealing a mouth full of white fang. "This is youth. Do you want to join us?" Forehead. Yurihong immediately blushed. A muscular version of Yuhekini lifting weights suddenly appeared in Asuma's mind. Suddenly he felt a chill. Farewell, Hong is better at illusion, as long as he is qualified in physical skills. Shi Nao frowned suddenly. "What's the meaning? Are you looking down on me?" Asuma still doesn't know that the trouble comes from her mouth. Kurenai Yuhi, who had already had a reduced sense of him, has begun to get bored with this rough man who likes to follow behind her every day. Compared with Naruto, it is a heaven and an underground. The gap is too big. "Hey, how many teachers are here?" At this time, Naruto's voice, very abrupt, came to the ears of several people. They turned their heads and saw Naruto walking over with a ninja sword. Seeing ninja sword, Kakashi's eyelids twitched involuntarily. I don't know why, but he has a bad feeling in his heart. "Hey, it's the young boy Naruto-kun." When Might Guy saw Naruto, he smiled welcomingly. "How about it? Do you want to join us and sway the sweat of youth?" Naruto suddenly said with regret. "Although I also want to practice with teacher Might Guy, I have other things to do today." Seeing Kurenai Yuhi approaching, Asuma said hastily. "Oh. What is your purpose in coming to us?" Naruto looked at Asuma and said. "It's nothing serious, I just came to see teacher Kakashi." Asuma turned pale. Fortunately, no one noticed him. Shi Nao stepped forward and said with a smile. "Long time no see. Why didn't you come to see me?" Naruto suddenly showed a shameful smile. "I'm really sorry, Sister Hong, I've been practicing recently." Yurihong smiled and tapped his forehead. "I'm sorry, remember to come and play with my sister next time." Naruto nodded repeatedly. Kakashi looked at the ninja sword in Naruto's hand, and asked with a sigh. "Naruto, what do you want to see me for?" Naruto said with a smile. "Recently, I have practiced swordsmanship, but I don't have anyone to refer to, and I don't know if it is right to practice. So I want to compete with teacher Kakashi to see where I am lacking." Kakashi sighed deeply. He just knew it. Before Kakashi could reply, Might Guy shook his finger and said with a full face. "Naruto boy, I advise you to get rid of this idea. Maybe Naruto boy, you are very talented in ninjutsu, but in terms of swordsmanship, you are definitely not as good as Kakashi." Kurenai Yuhi also looked at Naruto worriedly. "That's right. Senior Kakashi's swordsmanship is from a famous school, taught by his father. Do you know who Kakashi-senpai's father is?" A group of people looked at Naruto expectantly. Speaking of the entire ninja world, the person with the most powerful swords must be Kakashi's father Yurihong, also known as Hitaki Tsukumo. Thinking back to the time of the Ninja World War, Yurihong held a sword in his hand, sparks and lightning all the way, and solved one difficult opponent after another with his superb sword skills. Even Shia's parents were buried in his place. General strength. "I don't know, who is it?" Yurihong said with a serious face. Of course Naruto knew about Yurihong, but he still raised his head and pretended not to understand. Kakashi's father was once a hero of Konoha, and made great achievements on the battlefield. It is a powerful ninja known as Wood. It is rumored that those who have seen Yuhi Baiya's swordsmanship are all dead. Seeing Kurenai Yuhi and Naruto get together, the intimacy made Asuma almost jealous. He stepped forward and said with some displeasure, "Naruto, I didn't hit you. As far as your skills are concerned, it's too early to compete with Kakashi in swordsmanship. Kakashi used to carry a short sword behind his back when he was a child, but he doesn't use it very much now. If you want to compete with him, why not compare with me first? Maybe you can't even beat me." Naruto shifted his gaze to Asuma, looking at him suspiciously. "You also know. Okay, swordsmanship." Asuma immediately pulled out his 2 chakra knives. "This is my sword." That should actually be called a knuckle with a blade." Naruto complained intentionally. But after thinking about the oddly shaped weapons of the 7 ninja swordsmen, forget it. Even those can be called knives. Asuma is already very reserved. Although Asuma looks like he deserves a beating, Naruto naturally doesn't sympathize with him. If you come up and make yourself a target, if you don't have a good discussion with him, you will be sorry for the cultivation of the avatar. So he nodded and said, "All right then, teacher Asuma, enlighten me. Since you came here looking for a beating, then I have no reason not to satisfy you. Hope you don't cry then." Kurenai Yuhi stepped aside to join Might Guy and Kakashi. "Come on, Naruto." Naruto turned around with a smile. "Well, I will work hard, Sister Hong." Seeing her goddess actually cheering for others, Asuma was furious. "I can't wait to rush to teach Naruto a lesson now. But I'll let you see how amazing I am." The corners of Asuma's mouth curled up slightly. Even if he can't match Naruto in other skills, but if he only compares with swordsmanship, he doesn't think he will lose. After all, Naruto has never touched a sword before, and judging by his appearance, he may have just started practicing swordsmanship. And he, Asuma, have been fighting with this pair of chakra knives for over 10 years. The gap of these decades cannot be shortened overnight. From Asuma's point of view, he may no longer be Naruto's opponent in ninjutsu. But if it is a swordsmanship competition, I, who has rich experience, must be better than Naruto, a novice who has just started practicing. At this time, he has completely forgotten what he once looked like. When Naruto demonstrated the dodge technique, he thought the same way. As for the consequences, Kurenai Yuhi looked worriedly at the confronting 2 people. In other words, I mainly look at Naruto. She doesn't care about the follower Asuma. Naruto's ninja sword is just an ordinary ninja sword, and compared with Asuma's first chakra sword, the material is much worse. Asuma is so shameless that he doesn't use ninja knife, but uses a higher quality chakra knife. She couldn't help but said. Might Guy nodded in agreement with her. In this regard, Asuma is indeed a bit ill-considered, but the situation is urgent, and it is just a discussion. Don't worry about that much. And on the real battlefield, this kind of situation that is not conducive to oneself will definitely be encountered from time to time. That's when there's no time to complain about opponents not being fair. Of course Yurihong knew this too. It's just that she was too worried about Naruto, so she spoke in favor of him. However, Naruto is still too young after all. Swordsmanship is different from ninjutsu. Swordsmanship relies more on experience. Experience is something that cannot be improved quickly simply by relying on one's own cultivation. Only by experiencing a real life and death battle can one quickly improve one's combat experience. Yurihong nodded. She was also experienced in many battles, so she naturally knew the importance of combat experience. Although Asuma is not comparable to Kakashi in terms of swordsmanship, he is also an experienced jonin. In this regard, Naruto's disadvantage is too great. Kakashi frowned slightly. You can't say that. Don't forget Naruto's growth rate recently. When you think he can't do it, he can often do things that make you unbelievable. How could I have expected that would be able to defeat Sanagakure's advisor, Chio? His words made Might Guy's expression shudder. Might Guy finds himself with some lessons learned. Here at Naruto, it seems that sometimes experience doesn't pay off. On the contrary, there was a gleam in Yurihong's eyes. Although she rarely sees it with her own eyes, she has heard a lot of rumors about Naruto recently. Such as defeating Orochimaru, defeating Sanagakure consultant Chio and so on. These are things that a ninja like her hardly dares to think about. As a result, Naruto, who is only 6 years old this year, did it all. I can't imagine how terrifying Naruto's strength will be when he grows up. Maybe it will be bigger than first Hokage, Senju Hashirama. The voices of the three people's dialogue did not reach the two people in the field. And at this time on the court, Naruto stood where he was, his body relaxed. He holds the ninja knife sheath in his left hand, but the ninja knife is not out of the sheath. Opposite. Asuma bowed slightly, with the chakra knife on both hands. His eyes were serious, trying to find the flaws in Naruto. The breeze blows the bodies of the two people, blows the corners of the clothes of the two people, and also blows the hair of the two people. When Asuma saw Naruto's hair blowing to his face, he hit him suddenly. Ding. Asuma's attack is stopped. Naruto quickly drew out his ninja sword, blocking the movement of Asuma's right-hand chakra. But the key is that Asuma has two knives. With the first crisp sound of metal clashing, it seemed as if a prelude had begun. Afterwards, dense and crisp sounds sounded continuously. Asuma's attack does not have too many tricks, it relies entirely on its higher flexibility than ninja swords, and the advantage of having two swords to launch a quick attack. Naruto only has a ninja sword, and he is forced to retreat constantly, looking very embarrassed. But his face was calm, and his expression didn't change much. Really, Asuma was overjoyed. That brat Naruto's swordsmanship isn't good enough. I can win this time. As long as I win, Hong will definitely impress me. Boom boom boom. Clang clang. Asuma pressed on step by step, and the two knives kept pressing towards Naruto. After all, it is decades of combat experience, and the attack is impeccable, so Naruto has to retreat steadily, unable to hold back with his eyes open. I advise you to admit defeat, Naruto. Asuma's offensive continued unabated, with a smug smile on the corner of his mouth. It's not easy for you to be able to practice such sword skills in such a short period of time. But compared to an experienced jonin like me, it's still a bit worse. If you don't want to lose too badly, just surrender honestly. Watching Naruto recede further and further back, the smile on Asuma's mouth became more and more exaggerated. She didn't notice that Yurihong's eyes gradually became more contemptuous when she looked at him. Even Kakashi and Might Guy frowned slightly. Because of the expression on his face, it looks too much like a villain who has achieved success. Things did look very bad for Naruto. Boom boom boom. Kaka. The sound of sword clashing became louder and louder. Seeing that Naruto was about to be forced out of the scope of the practice field. Although the scope of the sparring has not been stipulated, but if you are really forced out, it is obviously no different from losing. Quickly throw in the towel, Naruto. I haven't done my best yet. The ecstasy in Asuma's eyes was about to burst out. The smile on the corner of the mouth gradually became arrogant. However, at this moment, Naruto turned the knife in his hand. Then, raise one arm high and wave hard. Swish. A white light visible to the naked eye flashed across Asuma's dull eyes. This moment, Asuma only felt a numbness in his hands. A breath of death rushed over. 2 seconds later, he stood there blankly, looking down at his hands. The chakra knife worn between the fingers has lost its blade at this moment and has become an ordinary knuckle. The incomparably strong chakra conductive metal is easily chipped in half. It's as if it's not metal, but tofu just out of the pan. This, cut off. Asuma's sword was cut off by Naruto. Yurihong covered her mouth, her beautiful eyes widened. Naruto's knife was too crisp and sharp. Cut iron like mud, without muddling at all. What happened just now? The sword energy was directly cut out. This is too powerful. Might Guy's tone was full of shock. Holding his head in his hands, he couldn't believe it. How did you do that? I don't feel chakra. You're not using chakra, are you, Naruto? Kakashi was also shocked. In the slash just now, Naruto did not use chakra to directly slash a white light out of thin air. Unless the sword skill reaches a certain level, it is impossible to do it. Only a master of his father's level can display such a new skill. Field. Naruto slowly sheathed the knife. You lose. He finished speaking lightly, and then stopped looking at Asuma, but fixed his eyes on Kakashi. At this moment, Asuma raised his head dumbly, looking at Naruto's back. A deep sense of frustration hit his heart. I thought I could beat Naruto by relying on swordsmanship. He even had the audacity to use better quality chakra knives, and there were 2 of them. Turn out to be. Naruto was just testing himself? With just one knife, he was completely defeated. Even the knife was cut off. Mess in the wind. Asuma just felt like a clown again. Naruto came over and looked at Kakashi with burning eyes. So, Kakashi-sensei, can I compete with you? Seeing Naruto's eager look on his face, Inkashi frowned slightly. Just now, he must not be afraid to fight Naruto at all. Inherited from his father's sword skills, Kakashi is still very confident in fighting. Even though he has not used it for many years, the memory of the past has not been sent to the doctor. The moment he held the handle of the knife, he knew which way to use the knife was the fastest and deadliest. He knows it all, but now, he hesitated a little. It doesn't matter if you lose, but he represents the former wooden Yibaya. Mu Yibaya, who was once invincible on the battlefield. If his reputation has fallen because of him, he will find it hard to forgive himself. After all, this was one of the few relics left to him by his father. Might Guy saw Kakashi's hesitation and said with a smile, Naruto boy, Kakashi has been training for a long time, and now he doesn't have much physical strength. It's better to save the discussion for another day. I think you don't want to compete with Kakashi, who is out of form. When Naruto heard this, he hesitated, but before he could speak, Kakashi stood up. Don't worry, it's just a sparring session, I still have some physical strength. He came to the other side of the practice field and took out a ninja knife. He looked at Naruto on the opposite side, and a gleam of rejoicing flashed in his heart. If I shrink back here, I'm afraid I won't feel comfortable holding the knife next time, right? Swordsmanship pays attention to the spirit. Once the spirit retreats, no matter how exquisite the swordsmanship moves are, it will be difficult to perform 1 out of 10. Fortunately, Guy's words woke me up. Even if it's not to prove father's sword skills, even if it's for my own will, I can't back down this time. It doesn't matter if you lose, but you must never back down. Kakashi's eyes were extremely serious. Although it was just a sparring session, he would never let go. Be careful. The knife is fast. Kakashi warned softly. Of course. Naruto also had a serious face. The legendary sword technique of Mu Yibaya. He hadn't seen it with his own eyes, and now he was able to see it through Kakashi's hands. Even if it wasn't for Hitaki Tsukumo's White Fang sword technique, it was worth it. I'm ready. Kakashi-sensei. Asuma hurried out of the practice field to make room for the two. He frantically approached Yurihong, but the goddess rolled her eyes and moved to the other side with a disgusted expression. Block him off with might, Guy. Asuma could only hang her head and look at the two people in the field resentfully. Naruto boy, oil. My eternal best friend, eternal rival, Kakashi. What an exciting battle. Might Guy shouted enthusiastically, with youthful flames in his eyes. As if wishing to also join the battle between Naruto and Kakashi. Naruto, here I come. Kakashi said softly, and the figure disappeared instantly. Of course, Naruto is not behind either. At the moment when Kakashi's voice did not fall, he also disappeared in place. Clang. Ninja knife clash. The two confronted each other across the knife. Naruto's aura is completely different from before. When fighting against Asuma before, Naruto did not show his full strength at all. On the one hand, he was comprehending his own swordsmanship. On the other hand, he looks down on Asuma's swordsmanship. In a word, Naruto didn't take Asuma seriously. His goal from beginning to end is only one. Through the sparring with Kakashi, confirm the strength of your current swordsmanship. After all, there are too few Grandmaster swordsmen in the entire ninja world. The 7 ninja swordsmen are all famous for their unique ninja swords. If there is any swordsmanship, Naruto disagrees. At present, the only one who can be called a master of swordsmanship is probably Killer Bee of Cloud Shinobi Village. As for Kakashi, although I have learned the old sleep since I was a child. But whether he can catch up with Hitaki Tsukumo is still a matter of debate. After all, since he got Obito's Sharingan, he relies more on ninjutsu to fight. He has rarely used ninja swords. Neither said a word. Kakashi pushed hard, pushing Naruto back. Naruto took advantage of his strength to leap back and flew lightly 3 or 4 meters away. Kakashi immediately followed by intensive and tricky attacks. Whoosh. Whoosh. Swish. Compared to Asuma's short sword, Kakashi's knife is faster, more accurate, and more deadly. Naruto's eyes were solemn, and the ninja sword in his hand was flying up and down, constantly blocking every fatal attack of Kakashi. The knife in Kakashi's hand became faster and faster. He has gradually regained the feeling he once had. His brows were slightly wrinkled, but his heart was extremely happy. He suddenly forced Naruto back, and then retreated quickly, keeping a distance from Naruto. It's been a long time since I felt this way. I forgot the last time I held a knife. Kakashi sighed, looking down at the first in his hand. This is just an ordinary ninja sword, not the ninja sword passed down from his father. This time, taking out the ninja knife again made him feel a lot of emotion. Naruto did not pursue, but put the knife into the sheath smoothly. He had a hunch that Kakashi's next attack would not be easy. Caressing the blade slowly, Kakashi's eyes gradually became sharper. Then, he bent his right hand holding the knife and placed it by his side. And the left hand is stretched forward, as if it is a shelf for aiming. Stab? Naruto's heart shuddered. He quickly grasped the handle of the knife in his hand. For a moment, Kakashi's figure disappeared from sight. The speed is too fast, but Naruto was prepared. In this rapid battle, the eyes are no longer the only thing the two rely on. More, it depends on feeling and experience. As for how fast the stabbing speed is, Naruto is not very clear. But he knew it must be soon. As the defensive side, the only thing he can do is knife drawing. Swish. Ding. This. Might Guy opened his mouth in shock, watching what happened on the field in disbelief. How is this possible? Are you able to block Kakashi's attack? Yurihong covered her mouth, she was already frightened. The moment Kakashi disappeared, she knew that this move was not ordinary. But she didn't dare to remind him aloud, for fear of disturbing Naruto. As for Asuma, she looked at Naruto dumbfounded. My heart is full of doubts, suspecting that I must have been kicked in the head by a donkey just now, so I wanted to use swordsmanship to compete with Naruto. I see. Kakashi's right hand is straightened, and the ninja sword in his hand becomes an extension of his arm. The whole person is like an arrow that is fired, extremely sharp. But this sharpness was blocked. Naruto blocked Kakashi's thrust with the blade. This is a very dangerous move, because if the blade is broken, Naruto will be unstoppable, and the sharp ninja knife will go straight into Naruto's heart. But Naruto also had full confidence, so he blocked it. At this time, he held the hilt in one hand and supported the blade with the other, blocking Kakashi's almost strongest blow. I didn't expect you to be able to block this trick. Kakashi was a little lucky, but also a little regretful. He used this trick just now, but he regretted it as soon as he used it. Because he can't stop. Fortunately, Naruto blocked it so that there would be no bloody scene that he didn't want to see. But this is also what makes him regret. His strongest move was blocked by Naruto. Although he had this premonition when he saw Naruto cut off Asuma's chakra knife. But when he really found that he was not as good as Naruto in terms of swordsmanship, the loss in his heart was still unacceptable to him. Next, it's my turn, Mr. Kakashi. Naruto smiled slightly. Kakashi's heart shuddered suddenly. He quickly drew his saber back, blocking the blade in front of him. Holding the knife in both hands, Naruto suddenly experienced. Give me, break. With a roar, he slashed down obliquely. The blade didn't even touch the ninja sword in Kakashi's hand, but the ninja sword broke through, and the break was smooth. An invisible domineering aura crossed Kakashi's cheek, drawing a small wound, and then leapt past him. Swish. This. What happened? How did Kakashi's sword break? Kurenai Yuhi didn't know why. She only saw Naruto swung his knife out of nowhere, but Kakashi hurriedly retreated, and the knife in front of him broke. It's as if it was cut off by high-voltage electric air. She was shocked and dazed. Really don't understand what's going on. Kakashi ignored the broken knife and the wound on his cheek, and suddenly turned his head. A stone as tall as a person came into his eyes. Asuma and Might Guy are also turning their heads like him. Although invisible, they all felt the sharp breath. Especially Kakashi, he seems to see the distortion of the air. Right under their watch, a thin slash appeared on the boulder. Amidst the rumbling sound, the boulder was split into two halves, and the upper part began to slide down a diagonal line. Kakashi stared blankly at the boulder that had been cut in half, not knowing what to say for a long time. It's so shocking, he never thought that Naruto's swordsmanship could reach this level. Even his father had never shown such a knife bed that cut through a boulder at a distance of more than 10 meters. This is not ninjutsu using chakra, but swordsmanship that relies entirely on strength. Naruto boy, is he already so terrifying? Might Guy's face was full of shock. He has never practiced swordsmanship, but he can feel the power contained in Naruto's sword, which is only stronger than himself. It's really shocking. God knows what kind of monster he will be when he grows up. Asuma looked at the boulder stupidly, and subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He was speechless. He has only one feeling now. That's luck. Fortunately, Naruto didn't show his real skills when he was sparring with him. Otherwise, it wasn't just his chakra knife that was severed. I'm afraid the whole person will be cut in half. Didn't you just practice swordsmanship? Is this what you said to cultivate? Asuma said with difficulty. He seems to have returned to the fearful days when he was dominated by Naruto's dodge technique a few months ago. Naruto nodded and said, "Yeah, I've only practiced for a few days." WTF? How many days did it take to cultivate to this level? Is this something humans can do? Only a few days? It's impossible. Asuma flatly didn't believe it. It is impossible for anyone to believe this matter. But Naruto is clearly special. Naruto-kun is really amazing. You are only 6 years old now. When you grow up, you will definitely become the strongest ninja Konoha has ever seen. Yurihong said sincerely. She seemed to be able to foresee the moment when Naruto stood at the top of everyone in the future. Might Guy shook his head, his face still in disbelief. It's unbelievable. If you were asked to practice for a few more days, will you split the mountain? He looked at Naruto with bright eyes, and his heart was full of boiling blood. How strong Naruto's final swordsmanship is, he really wants to see it. What a monster. Kakashi looked at Naruto dumbfounded, and let out a long breath. Originally, he was a little reconciled. The loss to Naruto made him feel that his swordsmanship had cast a shadow. It can be heard that it only took 1 day for Naruto to practice to this level. He suddenly felt relieved. After all, with this level of talent, even if his father survived, he would not be able to become Naruto's opponent in swordsmanship. This talent is really terrifying. Back in the day, Kakashi graduated from ninja school at the age of 5, and was promoted to Jonin at the age of 12. He was known as Konoha's genius. But now compared with Naruto, what is one? It's really exciting, Mr. Minato. You and your wife's children have grown up vigorously, and will definitely become Konoha's most solid pillar in the future. I really want you to see what Naruto looks like now. Kakashi looked into the distance and couldn't help but sigh. Have you remembered the points? Third generation stood on the podium, pointing at the formula on the blackboard with the pointer in his hand. Although every time he needs to teach, he needs to stay up all night to prepare the materials for lesson preparation. As a result, his hair became even more gray, making him look like a teenager out of thin air. But looking at the expectant eyes of the children every time they looked at him, he felt that no matter how hard or tired he was, it was worth it. This is all proof that he is still popular with everyone. He can also sit in Hokage's position with more peace of mind. At this time, the bell for the end of get out of class rang. Third generation stopped teaching and put their hands on the podium. Under the podium, there are a group of immature children. They all looked at third generation silently with burning eyes. After all, third generation is not a common teacher in the school, and it is not easy for these children to meet third generation. Therefore, when the third generation is teaching, even some poor students with poor academic performance will not perform badly. All listened attentively to the lessons taught by third generation, even if there are many of them who cannot understand. Third generation looked at the immature faces below, his eyes full of emotion. Perhaps not all of these children can become good ninjas, and some of them may not even be able to become ninjas. But it is this group of children who will become Konoha's 893 pillars in the future, supporting Konoha to move forward. Students, today's class is over, but your life is just beginning. A single spark can start a prairie fire. You may be just small flames, but when you gather together, you will definitely be able to exert great power. I look forward to the day when you grow up. Now, get out of class. The squad leader stood up immediately. All rise. Swish, swish, swish. Hundreds of students in the entire large classroom all stood up. Although their bodies were still very young, their momentum was not weak. They all bowed to third generation under the leadership of the monitor. Third generation nodded and left the teacher with a gratified smile. For the respect of these children, he has worked hard. Recently, I feel a little cold on the top of my head. I don't know if it is his illusion. On the way back, pedestrians greeted him sincerely. Master third generation has worked hard. Is the third generation coming home? It's hard work. Master third generation, try my homemade secret fried rice, it tastes very delicious. Master third generation, won't you come in and rest? Master third generation. Sir third generation who has listened all the way, but third generation is not bored. He enjoyed the title very much, because this is the respect the villagers have for him. This feeling is so good. With emotion in his heart, looking at the door in front of him, he was a little bit reluctant. Or 2 laps? He thought to himself. Suddenly, I heard the sound of breaking wind. He frowned slightly. The sound of breaking wind came from the door of the house. During this period, the only one in the family who can make a big noise is his idiot son Asuma. After all, Konohamaru is still young, it is not time to learn ninjutsu. What's up with this guy Asuma? Is he practicing? But why is he practicing at home when he has nothing to do? Could it be? This feeling of déjà vu gave third generation a bad feeling. Seems to have had a similar experience before. He pushed open the door, and saw Asuma swinging his sword wildly in the yard. Asuma's movement of swinging the sword is random, it's completely random. No wonder. After all, Asuma has never learned swordsmanship systematically, so naturally he doesn't know how to practice. This kind of head cutting is of no use other than wasting energy and hurting yourself. Third generation looked at Asuma blankly, he was too lazy to be shocked. He didn't even need to ask, he could guess that it must have something to do with Naruto. In the whole village, only Naruto can make him have this kind of reaction. But to be on the safe side, he felt that he still needed to ask. Maybe it's something else. Like Asuma getting dumped again or something. Most likely he was just venting the pain of being dumped. He coughed lightly to get Asuma's attention. But it was obvious that Asuma was immersed in his own world. Except for swinging his sword wildly with red eyes, he couldn't notice the surrounding situation at all. The several wooden handles erected by him are full of messy scratches, and it can be seen that Asuma has been going on for a while. A small head poked its head out of the window, looking very scared while calculating carefully. Third generation caught a glimpse of his grandson, Konohamaru. Now third generation is a little angry. It doesn't matter if you cultivate well or vent your anger. But you scared my precious grandson, believe it or not, lousy just remade you. Enough. Third generation let out a roar, which finally brought Asuma back to his senses. The ninja sword in Asuma's hand fell to the ground with a clang, and his hands trembled involuntarily, obviously reaching the limit. He turned his head and stared blankly at third generation with red eyes. Father, are you back? Third generation snorted coldly and said. You still know I'm your father. What are you going crazy about? Why are you slashing recklessly and hurting Konohamaru again and again? Mentioning this, Asuma's eye sockets turned even redder. When he thought of Yurihong's indifferent attitude towards him, he felt even more sad. I went to Hong today, and I happened to meet Guy and Kakashi. As a result, that boy Naruto also came. Naruto wanted to compete with Kakashi in swordsmanship. I tried my best for a while, hoping to beat Naruto in front of Hong, but the result. He fell to his knees. He said nothing, but seemed to say everything. Third generation shook his head helplessly. Isn't it just losing to Naruto, and it's not the first time you lost to him? I never saw you so sad when you lost to him last time. Clang. 2 knuckles were thrown at third generation's feet. Third generation looked at the 2 knuckles in bewilderment. What is this? Asuma said with her head down. My chakra knife. Third generation is even more confused. No. Why is there only fat tiger left? Where is the knife? Asuma's head drooped even deeper. The knife was cut off. Third generation stared wide-eyed and asked in disbelief. Cut off? Was it cut off by Naruto? Asuma nodded tremblingly. This? Naruto's swordsmanship can cut through the solid chakra-conductive metal directly? When did he practice this kind of swordsmanship? Third generation feels like its mind is full of question marks. By the way, didn't you say that Naruto is going to compete with Kakashi? Did they compare? Third generation suddenly remembered and asked quickly. Kakashi is not the same as Asuma. Third generation knows how powerful Hitaki is. And Kakashi also inherited his father's swordsmanship, and his strength in swordsmanship is not a star and a half behind Asuma. He is now curious to know what the outcome will be between Kakashi and Naruto. Asuma was silent for a while, then thumped the ground with both hands. Lost. Lost. That kid Naruto doesn't pay attention to me at all. He's not even willing to pull out all the stops on me. Asuma feels aggrieved no matter what she thinks. He rushed forward confidently, thinking that he could defeat Naruto with sword skills. He turned out to be a grandstanding clown, and in front of the woman he loves. This kind of blow was like a bolt from the blue to Asuma, which was unacceptable. But what made him even more uncomfortable was that everyone present ignored his existence. This kind of behavior was like a sharp knife piercing his body, making him miserable. Third generation opened its mouth in shock. It was not a big surprise that his trash son lost. Doesn't it mean that White Fang's saber technique has lost? That was the invincible sword technique that once dominated the battlefield. Even Chiyo's daughter-in-law puppet masters died at the hands of Hitaki Tsukumo. Now, Naruto actually defeated this powerful sword technique? How strong is Naruto now? This kid has grown up again. Third generation's eyes were burning and he became interested. Honestly, the current third generation is the same as the Uchiha Makoto couple. I don't care about the condition of my own son at all. But if something happened to Naruto, couldn't care less. This sentiment is more serious in third generation. To him, the current Naruto is like the apple of his eye, the child who represents the future of Konoha. Asuma. What is this? What else would you do besides embarrassing yourself? How can Naruto come to worry? Third generation silently took out a bong and took a puff, looking up at the sky. It was still early. Naruto's class was on break today, so he didn't see Naruto at school. While Naruto was resting, the only places he could go were the few training grounds outside the village, or he practiced directly in the forest. Wait a while and see for yourself his swordsmanship in 1.2. After all, this is the swordsmanship that represents the future of Konoha. Swish. There was silence. Then a big tree slowly slid down, and then fell to the side, revealing the blonde boy holding a ninja knife behind the tree. Looking at the fallen tree, Naruto slowly withdrew his knife. But at this moment, ding! Involvement succeeded. You have forced Hitaki Kakashi to involve successfully and get 1 point of involution. Ding! Involvement succeeded. You have forced Asuma to successfully involve and get 5,000 involution points. Ding! Involvement succeeded. You have forced Might Guy to succeed in involution and obtained 10,000 involution points. A series of prompts suddenly appeared, interrupting Naruto's train of thought. Have these people started again? Naruto was slightly taken aback, but didn't care. After all, Kakashi and the others are either introverted, or they are on the way to be introverted by themselves. I don't know how the avatars are practicing over there. It's been so long, the avatars should have a good mention. I remember that the highest standard of swordsmanship this time is to practice ninjutsu at the level of Wanzhongoizing. Naruto closed his eyes, his consciousness connected to the distant clone brigade. Immediately, the memories of the avatars flooded into his mind. The memory reception process is fast. 2 seconds later, Naruto opened his eyes suddenly, and there was a bright light in them. Good fellow, have you been able to do this? Naruto was extremely shocked, because, judging from the experience he had just gained from the avatar, his swordsmanship had already reached an unbelievable level, reaching the level of being able to fly with a sword. Developed based on flying ninjutsu, it is a super ninjutsu that can control a sword or a blade and control it according to one's own will, Yujian flying. Take it easy. Naruto eagerly pulled out the ninja sword, but after seeing the shape of the ninja sword, he took out the scroll and took out a long sword from it. Long swords in the ninja world are not long sword weapons. Whether it is a ninja or a samurai, most of the weapons of choice are knives, not swords. This sword was forged by Naruto when he was looking for a blacksmith to forge the weight. At that time, I just thought it was a commemoration, but I didn't expect it to be useful. Chakra was urged to throw the long sword with its sheath directly, and then the figure flashed, and he was already standing on the scabbard. On the rootless scabbard, Naruto did not fall, but floated in the air. This appearance is impressively that of the sword immortal flying with Yujian. Sure enough, imperial sword flying is not the best authentic sword. Naruto nodded in satisfaction. Let me test the speed. Naruto continued to accelerate, standing on the sword and feeling the gust of wind. Alas, he let out a cheer, excited. Although the current speed is not as fast as his flying ninjutsu. But this is the real Yujian flight, who didn't have a dream of a sword fairy when he was young. especially after watching Legend of Sword and Fairy and Legend of Shushan. Naruto didn't expect that in the ninja world, he could realize a childhood dream in this way. And with the continuous improvement of swordsmanship, it is not a dream to become a real swordsman. After feeling the speed, the next step is to test the power of Eugeon's attack. He stood on the scabbard, the long sword was suddenly unsheathed under his control, and rushed out at a high speed. With a swish, it penetrated the trunk of a thick tree without any sloppiness. With the blessing of speed, the penetrating power of the long sword rises in a straight line. Naruto is very satisfied. Although it is still impossible to take the head of a person thousands of miles away, given time, he will definitely be able to do it. At that time, the enemy didn't even know his location, and died under his sword. How chic that is. Naruto tested it several times and played the bliss block. And at this time, outside Naruto's house, a thin figure is gradually approaching. Really, swordsmanship, no matter how strong it is, so what? The ability of a ninja to survive and live still needs to rely on ninjutsu. If you practice swordsmanship to ultimate, you will have to be ignorant even if you continue with ninjutsu. Kid Naruto, don't go in the wrong direction, just play with swordsmanship, and focus on ninjutsu practice. The third generation chattered endlessly. He couldn't help thinking of his eldest son who had passed away. His eldest son is so outstanding, if he hadn't died young, he would have passed on the position of the fire injury to his eldest son. Moreover, the eldest son gave birth to him a sensible grandson, but his stupid second son not only failed to inherit his own strength, but now even his partner is being chased away by others. What a waste. The third generation walked in the forest cursing. Not far ahead is the Naruto location Anbu provided him. And according to Anbu, Naruto is still practicing swordsmanship today. I don't know what kind of swordsmanship will be able to defeat Kakashi. However, Naruto, you really have so many ninjutsu that you can't practice well. Why do you practice this kind of hopeless swordsmanship? What is the way out for swordsmanship? How many people in the ninja world are still using swords? Don't forget that we are ninjas, ninjutsu is what we should learn. Third generation was thinking about it, and he had already arrived at Naruto's training ground. But at this moment, he looked up blankly, dumbfounded. The chattering words also stopped. Third generation rubbed his eyes and blinked vigorously a few times. Huh. What did I see? Third generation squinted his eyes hard, and even pinched his thigh with his hand. Because he felt as if he was hallucinating. Naruto, standing on a sword? No, that's a scabbard. Naruto, standing on a scabbard. And whoosh, whoosh. The sound of breaking the air kept coming. The third generation turned around blankly, and saw a long sword rapidly piercing through the trunks of big trees under Naruto's control. Incomparably sharp. Powerful. What is this? The whole third generation is completely stupefied. Like a bewildered child, standing there blankly. Is this swordsmanship? What the hell are you telling me this is swordsmanship? Is this how swordsmanship is? Third generation was completely dumbfounded. In his inherent impression, isn't swordsmanship just a move of slashing and slashing each other? When did it become like this? Naruto can fly in the air while stepping on a sword. And it can also directly control the sword to penetrate the big tree. What kind of swordsmanship is this? Third generation froze in place like an idiot. And far away. Naruto stopped manipulating the long sword, stepped on the scabbard and floated to the top of Yi's head. It's Grandpa third generation, what can I do for you? Third generation looked up at Naruto with a wry smile on his face. At this time, behind Naruto is the sinking sunset. Although the light is bright, it is not particularly dazzling. But it makes Naruto look very majestic and divine. Naruto's condescending posture even made third generation want to bow his head before he knew it. After a full 5 or 6 seconds of silence, third generation came back to its senses. He touched his head and said with a wry smile, "Hey, it's okay, just come and take a look, you are busy with your work." Naruto nodded, then continued to manipulate the long sword. Then, third generation saw that under the control of Naruto, the long sword either cut off several big trees with one sword, or cut the boulder in half. Extraordinary power. Moreover, the portability of this remote control can be more useful in real battles. Just like a puppet master, he can hide in the dark and attack the enemy. If you can fly in the air like Naruto, as long as you reach a certain height, the enemy will not even have the ability to fight back. As for the third generation, they just stood there with a sluggish expression, watching silently. He kept thinking. How exactly is this done? Didn't see any traces of chakra on the sword at all, let alone chakra threads. I can't understand how Naruto controls this long sword at all. Is this still ninjutsu? Naruto, is he really a ninja? Compared with his skills, the title of Dr. Ninja seems like a joke. 333. After 2 hours of Naruto's swordplay in the forest, third generation staggered away. Go home. Third generation remained silent. Asuma on the side, seeing the face of third generation, felt uncomfortable and even more desperate. What's the matter? You look very disappointed. Did you also get defeated by Naruto? Asuma originally wanted to poke fun at third generation. But who knew, the face of third generation not only did not become relaxed because of his joke, but became stricter. Not enough. Third generation said something coldly. Okay. Asuma doesn't know why. What isn't enough? It's your cultivation, Asuma. Third generation stared at Asuma with fierce eyes. Do you think it's enough with your cultivation? What kind of swordsmanship is that? It's nothing at all. After seeing Naruto after that kind of swordsmanship, how can you still sleep? It's not enough. Give me more effort to practice. You are far behind Naruto's swordsmanship. Seeing the angry look of third generation, Asuma was completely stunned. What the hell? What's the matter? I lost to Naruto, didn't you already know that? Why did he go out for a trip, and the anger became even bigger? Did father really be defeated by Naruto? Asuma was very surprised, he only hated himself for being cheap. If I knew it, I wouldn't be joking. My lord, my cultivation is already very advanced. What is it? I've said it all. Your cultivation is not enough. Compared with Naruto's swordsmanship, your swordsmanship is not called swordsmanship at all. Continue to practice. Don't neglect yourself. Ding. Involvement successful. You have forced Asuma to successfully intrude and get 50,000 involution points. The Land of Thunder is located in a magnificent valley. A waterfall fell straight down, and when it landed on the lake, it made a loud noise like thunder. Darui arrives with a small party. Remember, if you meet Master Killer Bee, don't make strange comments about his accent. Darui warned these men who met Killer Bee for the first time. The subordinates nodded one after another, with expressions of admiration in their eyes. That's Lord Raikage's exclusive partner, the village's perfect Jinchuriki, Lord Killer Bee. Even if the accent is strange, it does not prevent them from admiring Killer Bee. At this time, with a whoosh, the sound of breaking through the air came. A person rushed in front of several people at an extremely fast speed. The ninjas who can be chosen by Darui to be his subordinates are naturally not weak. But they were all attracted by Darui's words, and they were not energetic enough. The sudden attack made them panic. A cold light flashed across, and one of the attackers only felt a chill in his crotch. Looking down, his face suddenly turned green. His belt was cut off. Only a yellowed trousers were left on the lower body. Etc. Darui saw who it was and shouted quickly. I don't know who he wants to wait. The attacking figure has no intention of stopping. His body was spinning so fast in the air that it was impossible to see his face clearly. Gorgeous saber glows continuously flashed around him, and flashed across several people. Swish swish swish. Jingle. Of the remaining 2 subordinates, one of his clothes was torn into a cloth beggar's attire. The other subordinate reacted the fastest, and quickly sent out kunai to block part of the attack. The body was still scratched by the knife light, and the clothes became tattered. However, he blocked several attacks, which also allowed him to discover the identity of the attacker. Odd. Killer Bee balance. The subordinates screamed, unable to believe that the person who attacked him turned out to be his idol. Killer Bee, who was called out, jumped back and distanced himself. Darui stepped forward helplessly, scratched the back of his head and said, Master, what are you doing? Killer Bee put his hands on his shoulders, shook his head dissatisfied and said, Hurting your footsteps, I planned to test your depth, but your level simply made me daunted. Wait, isn't the last one a bit wrong? Never mind. Killer Bee didn't care that there was something wrong with the lyrics he just created, he said to Darui dissatisfied. Your men are terrible. It can't even stop a sneak attack of this level. Darui said helplessly. They all admire you very much, and they must not be vigilant enough when they think of seeing you. And you are the strongest in the village other than Mr. Movie, how could they be your opponents? It's still in the case of surprise attack by you. He looked back at his 3 men. They all looked distressed, with scratches all over their clothes. But there were no signs of injury. At the moment they are looking up at Killer Bee in admiration. Although they were puzzled by the strange singing just now, the excitement of seeing their idol made them forget it. Master Killer Bee, you are really amazing. Your sword skills are simply the best in the world. The powerful knife technique cut through the clothes of all of us, but didn't hurt us at all. This control is really amazing. Killer Bee Adult Race High. I've heard about the feats you and Lord Rakage have had on the battlefield since I was a child. Your sword skills really amaze me. I am your admirer, can you sign me? Killer Bee's ears moved, and he came directly in front of the last person, skillfully took out a pen and paper and signed his name for him. Collect it well. This signature will be very valuable in the future. Because it's the autograph of my great rap master Killer Bee. The subordinate who received the signature held the signed version of Vice Admiral tightly in his arms under the envious eyes of the other 2. Yes, I'll keep it as a family heirloom. The other 2 stared at him with resentful eyes. If Killer Bee was not present, they would have rushed to snatch the autograph away. Darui said helplessly, "My lord, we are looking for you this time." Killer Bee had just signed someone's autograph and was in the right mood. At this moment, 8-Tails' warning suddenly came to his mind. Killer Bee, it's bad. Killer Bee immediately raised his hand and stopped Darui's words. Etc. Then he asked 8-Tails in his mind. What's the matter? What's going on, buddy? 8-Tails' voice was a little nervous, which made Killer Bee very curious and puzzled. It's Chakra from 9-Tails. I'm absolutely not mistaken, it must be that guy 9-Tails, he is approaching here at high speed. Killer Bee was stunned. 9-Tails. Wasn't he sealed in Konoha? How did he appear here? And what does high speed mean? Did you make a mistake? 8-Tails' voice became even more flustered. I'm not mistaken, it's that guy from 9-Tails. He's fast. My god, how fast he came. Killer Bee knew right away that something was wrong. An enemy who can make 8-Tails panic like this is definitely not easy to deal with. Although I don't know why the 9-Tails that should be in Konoha came to the distant land of thunder. But he is a perfect Jinchuriki, and he has experienced the baptism of war, and he is not someone who can be dismissed casually. He immediately drew out 2 ninja swords, held them with both hands and began to be on guard. Seeing Killer Bee's sudden alertness, others were puzzled. Darui knew that his master was usually a weird person, and he might be acting weird now. It's like just raiding them and saying you're going to test them. He said helplessly. Master, what's the matter this time? Killer Bee looked around with a serious face. 8-Tails sensed 9-Tails' aura and was approaching at a very high speed. Darui's expression suddenly changed. Not only him, but his subordinates also changed their faces. 9-Tails? Isn't 9-Tails exactly what they're monitoring? Why did it suddenly appear in the land of thunder? Darui said. Master, I'm looking for you this time because of the Jinchuriki from 9-Tails. Killer Bee looked up suddenly. Do not talk. Darui and the others followed suit. Then they saw a golden figure streak across the sky. The speed was so fast that it disappeared into the sky almost in the blink of an eye. Etc. Darui couldn't believe his eyes. Is that Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto from 9-Tails? How is he so fast? And am I reading it wrong? Is there something under his feet? Darui was full of doubts. As for his subordinates, they didn't see clearly at all. Because Naruto is too fast. All they saw was a streak of gold streaking across the sky. At this moment, they looked shocked and bewildered. The mouth was wide open, and it looked like it was about to be dislocated. What the hell is this? Killer Bee let out a shocked roar. His sunglasses were almost smashed by the bulging eyeballs. It was so shocking. Is he stepping on a sword? Wait. Why can he fly? And why can you step on the sword and fly? How on earth did he do it? What kind of sword technique is this? Or what kind of ninjutsu? No, what kind of ninjutsu can make people step on the sword and fly? As soon as Darui heard it, he knew that he was right. Is it really a sword? Since when did Naruto have this hand? Darui opened his mouth in shock. Obviously before he left, Naruto didn't know swordsmanship yet. As a result, now, they are all flying in the sky on their F** king swords. How many days has it been? Do you want to be so exaggerated? No. I have to figure it out. Killer Bee was just too shocked and curious. As a master swordsman, how could he not feel itchy when he saw this scene? And Naruto's hand has to be said to be really handsome. For Killer Bee, who likes to be handsome, it is a fatal temptation. He took the lead and chased after Naruto in the direction where Naruto was leaving. The speed is fast. Darui also came back to his senses and rushed over. Follow. Only then did the three men come back to their senses. They looked at each other, and they all saw the shock in each other's eyes. Then they immediately followed. Is that really not a hallucination? The speed is so fast. Can we catch up? Don't ask so many questions. If you want to chase after me, just chase after me. If you can't catch up, don't talk about it. And that person is our target this time. No matter what we say, we have to catch up. But why is he here? Who knows? Maybe you'll find out if you catch up and have a look. The three whispered softly. The shock in their hearts was hard to dissipate for a long time. Amazing Zhao, _ What? It was just too unacceptable. This simply defies common sense. At least they couldn't figure out how Naruto did it. Wind attribute ninjutsu? Or rock attribute ninjutsu? Neither of these are ninjutsu that Cloud Shinobi is good at. Master. That is our target this time. Uzumaki Naruto of Konoha village, who is also Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Darui caught up with Killer Bee and said with a solemn face. Although I don't know what his purpose in coming to the Land of Thunder is, this opportunity is rare. If he can be captured alive, Konoha's vitality will be seriously injured. Nine Tails is their only tailed beast. Killer Bee's mind was full of flying swords at this time. He was too lazy to care about the political issues between these villages. That's all nonsense. I just want to know how he did it now. Such a handsome posture, I must also learn it. Flying on a sword. How did this kid think of it? He's so handsome. Darui sighed helplessly. Give up the idea of continuing communication with Killer Bee. Originally, Killer Bee was a guy who advocated freedom. Also repeatedly disobeyed Raikage's orders. Darui knew it would be difficult to get Killer Bee. But perhaps in the entire Cloud Shinobi village, only a few of them, Killer Bee's apprentices, could invite him to make a move. Perhaps that's why Raikage arranged for him to call Killer Bee. Otherwise, Killer Bee will just ignore what other people say, and then immerse himself in his creation. Although those creations are really hard to hear. Arrived. Killer Bee yelled, bringing Darui back to his senses. Darui looked up and immediately saw the target Naruto. He suddenly widened his eyes. Because Naruto is stepping on a long sword at the moment, standing in midair. Facing it is a mountain hundreds of meters high. At this moment, Naruto stood facing the peak, and the howling mountain wind blew on his body, making his clothes rattle. Naruto's left hand was behind his back, and his right hand held a sword finger by his side. Only then did Darui see that Naruto was carrying a strange iron box on his back, which was taller than Naruto. I don't even know what's inside. It was so fast just now that it disappeared almost in the blink of an eye, and he didn't notice it at all. What's in there? Is it a puppet? Darui asked with a frown. Killer Bee doesn't care what's in that box. He only cares about how Naruto is able to fly in midair, and he is still flying with his sword. Just as he was about to get up and ask directly, he was stopped by Darui, who had quick eyes and quick hands. Master, he hasn't found us yet, so we can't startle the snake. This opportunity is once in a lifetime, and we must grasp it well. Killer Bee said, struggling. Laozi doesn't care about that. Laozi wants to fly. Laozi is going to ride a sword and fly. This is real swordsmanship. At this moment, Darui's subordinate number 1 suddenly let out a scream. Look. What is he going to do? Everyone looked up quickly. I saw Naruto's right hand placed by his side raised to 680's chest, and then swung forward suddenly. Somewhere, Killer Bee and the others seem to have heard a very majestic voice. Wan Jian returns to the sect. Swish, countless blades flew out from the iron box behind Naruto, like a torrent of steel. These tens of thousands of blades, like worker bees obeying the orders of the queen bee, drew a beautiful and regular trajectory, circling around Naruto, and then flew out in the direction Naruto pointed. What the sword pointed at was the direction of the mountain peak. This iron box is obviously a sword box specially made by Naruto. Now that he has learned to fly with the sword, Wan Jian will return to his ancestors. How can there be no sword box? So after Naruto acquired sword skills, he immediately built a sword box to hold his tens of thousands of swords. In this way, when thousands of swords are returned to the sect in actual combat, there is no need to temporarily take out tens of thousands of long swords from the scroll. Of course, when not in use, the sword box is placed in the scroll. But at this time, witnessing this miraculous torrent of steel below, the shocking picture completely stunned everyone. Boom. Killer Bee's sunglasses couldn't hold up any longer, and was directly smashed by the protruding eyeballs. The others opened their mouths wide open, and their jaws almost fell to the ground. It was so shocking. What the hell is this? You tell me what the F*K is this? Is this what ninjutsu can do? Killer Bee grabbed the dull-faced Darui, pointed at Naruto in the air and roared. This is definitely not what ninjutsu can do. Even those guys from Sanagakure who are good at puppets can't control so many swords. He's crazy. How on earth did he do it? Darui's face was dull and bewildered. He muttered in his mouth. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. Like a broken repeater, he kept repeating this sentence. The picture was too shocking, beyond the limits of his imagination. The picture of tens of thousands of swords pointing like arms has been deeply imprinted in his mind, affecting him. This picture is beyond everyone's common sense. When have these ninjas seen such a shocking scene? Wait. Look. At this time, Darui's number 2 man let out an exclamation, pointing to the distant mountain peak and screaming. Everyone looked up and looked in the direction he was pointing. Look at what? Number 3 was unknown, so he didn't see anything. The mountain is still the same mountain, although the torrent of steel formed by tens of thousands of swords just shook his heart, but he did not notice the change quietly happening on the mountain at this time. It's a word. Darui's eyes are better than theirs. Although the distance was too far, he couldn't see clearly what Naruto was carving. But he could tell that Naruto was engraving. What? Lettering. Killer Bee yelled in shock. What is he carving? Killer Bee stared hard at his small eyes, but he couldn't see the writing on the distant mountain. Darui looked hard, but the distance was too far. No, I can't see it, because it's far away. They wanted to check it out, but were afraid of alarming Naruto. At this point Darui has no idea of capturing Naruto. Just when Naruto manipulated 10,000 Jianfeng's operation, he knew that he didn't even know how to die when he went up. Even if his master Killer Bee went up, I'm afraid he couldn't stand it. It's really scary, thinking of the loud voice that I vaguely heard. Darui couldn't help muttering to himself. Will Wan Jian return to the sect? That voice seemed to come from heaven and earth. It was magnificent and shocking. They waited anxiously, shaking Naruto's power. Hide in a corner and hide so as not to let Naruto find out. It's been a long time. Regular traces can already be clearly seen on the mountain peak. Although the relationship is too far away, Killer Bee and the others still can't see themselves clearly above. But it has been confirmed that Naruto is indeed in Ketchen. Or maybe it's over lettering. They saw that Naruto retracted his right sword finger, and a torrent of tens of thousands of swords came back from the mountain peak, and then got into the sword box behind him neatly. Is the over? Killer Bee said unsatisfactorily, his tone full of regret. He hasn't seen enough. He also wanted to see the mystery of Naruto's manipulation of the long sword and flying on the sword. Unfortunately, Naruto obviously didn't intend to give him this chance. After putting the sword back into the box, Naruto turned around and flew towards Konoha without stopping at all. Everyone watched Naruto disappear into the sky in a stream of light, unable to look back for a long time. The deep shock was deeply buried in the hearts of several people. Killer Bee was the first to recover and rushed towards the mountain. I'm going to see what he wrote. Darui also came back to his senses, and hurriedly followed. As they gradually approached, the self on the mountain was also revealed in their eyes. There are still hundreds of meters away from the mountain peak, and they have already seen Naruto's handwriting engraved on the mountain peak. Killer Bee read every single word. Sunshine sensor produces purple smoke. Looking at the waterfall hanging in the front of the river. Flying straight down 3,000 feet, it is suspected that the Milky Way falls for 9 days. Killer Bee was deeply shocked. As a rap creator, he was deeply shocked by these 4 sentences. Can such beautiful words be created by human beings? Simply magnificent, simply magnificent. At this time, the afterglow of the setting sun reflected on the white clouds on the top of the mountain, revealing a touch of purple light. Look. It's Xian. Darui pointed at the white clouds on the top of the mountain that were dyed purple in shock. Everyone looked up and fell into a deep shock. Rijiao sensor produces purple smoke, as this purple smoke. Killer Bee stared blankly, feeling parched. He wanted to say something, but all the words came to his mouth, but he swallowed them back. He felt that he was not qualified to comment on such a natural beauty. It's absolutely amazing. Looking at the waterfall hanging from the front of the river. The waterfall hanging from the front of the river. Killer Bee turned his head and looked at the waterfall in the mountain. Falling straight from a height of hundreds of meters, connecting the peak and the foot of the mountain. It was originally the flow of water. But in Naruto's pen, because of a hanging character, the waterfall is compared to a huge white chain hanging between mountains and rivers. It's absolutely perfect, Killer Bee said in shock. Darui and the others don't have such deep feelings as Killer Bee. They just feel that the words are so beautiful, but they can't tell where the beauty is. They are like an illiterate at this time. Obviously they can recognize these characters separately, but when they are combined together, they become illiterate who do not know a single character. This sense of powerlessness torments them and shakes their hearts. These 4 sentences are really amazing. The second sentence describes the movement of the waterfall as static, showing the beauty of the words. The flying stream in the third line goes down 3,000 feet, showing the ultimate movement of the waterfall again. It's really shocking. Killer Bee said in shock, with a hint of regret in addition to the shock in his eyes. It's just that the mountain is too short, and it doesn't reflect the atmosphere of this word at all. The last sentence is really too grand, it is not a sentence that people can imagine. He even compared the waterfall to the Milky Way in the sky. Is this something ordinary people can imagine? Uzumaki Naruto, this sun is so terrifying. It's really shocking. It's shocking. Killer Bee didn't speak all of his understanding though. But just the explanation of the last 2 sentences was enough to shock Darui and the others. As a ninja, he only learned knowledge about killing. Facing such lofty words and sentences, how can they understand them thoroughly? Not even Killer Bee can really understand all the hidden meanings of this poem. But this did not prevent him from admiring this beautiful poem. He has already engraved these short 4 sentences deeply in his mind. Don't move anything on this mountain. This is a treasure belonging to human culture, and it can be passed down countless times. If this treasure is destroyed because of the selfishness of some youngsters, it will be the greatest regret in history. Killer Bee said with emotion. Darui nodded heavily. Although he doesn't know much about these things about culture. But he also knows that these 4 sentences can definitely be passed down through the ages, and they are the treasures of human civilization. They are able to see each other today. It is indeed a lifetime of existence. Killer Bee was deeply shocked. Inside him, 8 Tails was also shaken. Is this the Jinchuriki of 9 Tails? This is too strong, right? Couldn't this guy be a tailed beast in human skin? Even 9 Tails can't do anything, right?
Manipulating so many swords, and accurately engraving these 4 quatrains, is really shocking.
Compared with him, you are really far behind, Zhang. The gap between Jinchuriki and Jinchuriki, I didn't expect it to be so huge, it really opened my eyes world. 8 Tails chattered inwardly. Killer Bee's shocked heart was constantly being attacked. Anger kept accumulating, but he couldn't vent it. Because 8 Tails is right, he can't refute it. Judging from the performance just now, the gap between him and Naruto is really huge. At least he believes that he is absolutely unable to write these 4 lines of poems on the mountain. He's just a rapper, and it's really difficult for him to write something so lofty. This is simply not something a human can write. Is this written by the gods? 8 Tails was still complaining in his heart, and the meaning behind the words was very clear. Just hate him, Killer Bee. This pissed off Killer Bee. It was fine before, but when I saw that 9 Tails Jinchuriki was so good, I immediately hated it. People just can't compare. Even tailed beasts are the same. This comparison is like liking new people and hating old people. Killer Bee is getting more and more angry the more I listen to it. But he couldn't refute. After all, everything 8 Tails says is true. It is because of this that Killer Bee is even more angry. But he can't wave his hand and tell 8 Tails to go find Naruto. If 8 Tails really wants to go, before he can do anything, his Raikage partner can cut him straight away. His parents don't even recognize him. Although his parents have already left. Indignant and helpless, Killer Bee gritted his teeth and snorted coldly, turned around and left with a big handshake. I can't even bother to appreciate this peerless poem. Wait. Master Killer Bee? Killer Bee is gone. Darui Sao is gone. What's wrong? Okay. Why are you still angry? It is not incomprehensible. After all, we just praised him for his good swordsmanship, but when he turned around, he saw a guy with superb swordsmanship showing off in front of him. As long as it is a normal person, it will be dissatisfied. Darui thought, following Killer Bee. Master, where is this going? Report to Lord Rakage. How could Killer Bee have the mood to report at this time? He snorted coldly and left without looking back. Report to yourself. Lousy is going to practice. Darui was stunned again. This, he wanted to say, no need to. Anyone with a discerning eye will know that Naruto's operation is not easy to practice. And even if you want to practice, Master, do you know how to practice? I'm afraid I don't have any clue about it. As for Naruto's operation of stepping on the sword, I'm afraid you can't even imagine it. Certainly. I want to go back to thinking. Darui didn't dare to speak out. He was afraid of being beaten. He still knows a little bit about what to say and what not to say. Finally, he looked back at Weshi on the mountain peak. Darui reluctantly took back the realization. Go back and report to Lord Rakage what just happened. Phew, I stretched my muscles and bones, it's not bad. Naruto stood on the sword and stretched greatly. Ahead is Konoha approaching. When he learned that the Avatar had successfully practiced Wanji and Gizong, he couldn't wait to go out, wanting to find a place to display it. But after flying for a long time, I haven't found a suitable place. Until he flew to the Land of Thunder and saw that mountain peak, he immediately thought of Li Bai's Wanglu Mountain waterfall. Although the mountain is shorter, the weather is not as torrential as Mount Lu. But this is the only place in the ninja world, and there is really no better place. Naruto could only make do with it and try. I have to say that Wan Jian's return to the sect is really cool. Tens of thousands of Jianfeng hearts move and manipulate at will. Then he left clear handwriting on the mountain wall. This control made him very satisfied. Right now, swordsmanship can be regarded as a successful practice, so we can come to an end temporarily. There shouldn't be much room for improvement in swordsmanship in a short period of time, just let the avatars figure it out for themselves. Back to Konoha, the sunset just shone on his face. He stood in the air, counting the time silently. It's been a while since Shisui died. That guy Itachi should probably act too, right? While there's still time, I'll go see how Uchiha is doing with those little guys. Making up his mind, Naruto turned directly towards the Uchiha tribe outside the village. When he came near the Uchiha tribe, Naruto didn't rush in. Uchiha is now under the watchful eyes of Anbu. At this time, his rash entry into the Uchiha clan will only arouse suspicion out of thin air. He had to go in without anyone noticing, fortunately. With observation haki, he can easily detect where Anbu's personnel are. He quietly came behind a lurking Anbu, gently reached out and patted Anbu's shoulder. Anbu, who was following him, was startled, and suddenly turned around to see a pair of scarlet eyes. Then his eyes went dark and he fell into a deep coma. 1. Naruto supported Anbu's body, not letting him make the slightest sound to disturb the others. 5 more. This kind of person is nothing to Naruto. In just a few breaths, all the Anbu who were watching fell into a deep sleep and could not wake up. At least they won't wake up until the night is over. With no one following him, Naruto swaggered into the Uchiha clan's courtier. He came to a hidden indoor practice field with ease. It is usually disguised as an abandoned warehouse. In fact, this is a practice field specially created by Sasuke. It is a place for juniors like Sasuke and Tieshu to practice secretly. Although many people of the Uchiha clan started to practice spontaneously under their encouragement. But they lacked Naruto's guidance, and their progress was limited. Unlike Iron Trees, Liuyan and the others, some even awakened Mangekyo Sharingan through Naruto's trick. This power, in the eyes of the uninformed, is a huge force. As long as you play it at the right time, you can turn the tide of the game. And they are the pawns that Naruto laid out in advance before the night of genocide. When the night of genocide comes and Itachi really intends to kill the clansmen, they will no longer have any doubts about Naruto. They will become Naruto's most loyal followers among the Uchiha clan. This will play a vital role in controlling Konoha in the future, and even sweeping the entire ninja world. Third generation and Danzo are too narrow-minded. There is only jealousy, and fear in his eyes, and he has no ability to tolerate others. The Uchiha clan is such a powerful force, and they are so peeing on them. There is also the Senju clan. It's a pity. Since you don't want it, then I won't be polite. Naruto showed an evil smile, then restrained his expression, opened the door and walked into the dark warehouse minister. After he entered, Kankuri suddenly lit up dozens of pairs of scarlet eyes. Some are double-hook jade, some are three-hook jade. Most of them are three-hook jade. These people have all been baptized and awakened the hidden power in their blood. And under Naruto's training, most of their strength has reached Konoha Jonin's standard. At this time, a man with a single hook stepped forward. You came? The indifferent voice was exactly Sasuke. He is also the only single hook jade among these people. But he is the one with the strongest overall strength in the field. It has to be said that he is a genius of the Uchiha clan. It's just that peacetime limits his growth, and he hasn't lived through enough tragic deeds for his eyes to grow. At this time, Tieshu, Liuyan, Fanglin, and Huashan from the same class also came. And Naruto's little girlfriend Uchiha Izumi. Uchiha Izumi is the oldest of the group. After all, it's the same age as Itachi, but she's not bad at talent, and she's one of the few in this group who has awakened Mangekyo. Talented on Sharingan, she's not weak. Even stronger than ordinary clansmen. They all surrounded Naruto at this moment. In the darkness, watching the scarlet eyes light up one by one, it was as if countless cats had opened their eyes. Coldness is Naruto's first feeling. Then comes contentment. This is the strength he cultivated. It won't be long before these powers will reach everyone. Thinking of this, Naruto felt a little satisfied in his heart. But this is not enough. In his grand blueprint, this is just the beginning. There is also the entire ninja world, and even other continents waiting for him to conquer. A mere small ninja world cannot satisfy his huge appetite. Let's start, he said lightly. In an instant, countless black shadows leapt from the darkness. The scarlet pupils drew ghostly tracks in the darkness. No one tried to cast an illusion on Naruto, because those who have tried have been taught a lesson. They realized how foolish it was to cast an illusion on Naruto. The first thing to do is distance people. Holding kunai in their hands, they mercilessly attacked Naruto's vitals. In order not to make noise and light, none of them had the idea of using ninjutsu. Relying solely on melee combat and hidden weapon throwing. At most, use the body flicker technique. Although the momentum was small, dozens of people with the strength of Jonin besieged, and even third Hokage might not be able to escape. Jingle. The sound of weapons intersecting one after another. The besieging people cooperated tacitly, and those who threw hidden weapons in the distance could even cooperate with each other to change the trajectory of their hidden weapons, making it even more difficult to guard against. Fortunately, the dark environment has no effect on them who have Sharingan. Naruto is still quite comfortable, but he was no longer simply dodging, but took out kunai to resist those attacks that could not be dodged.